we're going to do my all-time favorite assignment. And that's because I get to find out about your friends. I got to find out about maybe your classmate. You're going to interview a friend or a classmate about an important small sliver of that person's life, right? So we're not going to talk about where the person's born or anything unless it has to do with the theme of the story. And I say keep it G-rated, right? I don't want to know something that you wouldn't tell your grandmother or your 5-year-old niece, right? So we're going to keep it G-rated here. Let me explain what's going to be in your story. So what am I asking you to do? I think knowing that first is going to help you to plan how you're going to go about this. The story length is about 10 to 12 decent-sized paragraphs. So not 10 one-sentence paragraphs, right? And I'm talking about paragraphs that might be like 3 to 4 lines. It's okay if you have a short paragraph mixed in the bunch, but you don't want to have a bunch of short ones because you haven't told me anything. The story's going to have a definite beginning, middle, and end. So it has an alternative lead, a nut graph. Your very first direct quote comes right after that. The middle of the story. So that's organized by category or chronologically. It contains indirect quotes and at least 3 good full sentence direct quotes. Now remember, your direct quotes go in their own paragraphs. That keeps us from writing paragraphs that are too long, but it also highlights those excellent direct quotes. No partial quotes. That's a no-no here. We're not going to do that. And you're going to have an ending that ties to the beginning. In fact, you're going to do your interview before you quit. You know what your ending is. You know which quote you're going to put at the end because that's going to determine your beginning. The first thing you want to do is make sure you spell your person's name right. So I'm going to stalk that person and find out if you really did it. So get the information you use to identify your subject. It depends again on the theme of your story, what piece of information, what sliver of that person's life we're talking about. And so it could be the hometown. If this person is a student, maybe the year or the major. If it's occupation, if it's about that person's occupation, you can use many different types of identifying information in a story because it shows us how well-rounded people are. But you don't want to omit that really important piece of information that we need to know. It's okay if you don't use all of it, but you've got it if you need it. Now your story is going to focus on the answer to only one of these questions. I'm giving you 4, but you may not get past number 1. The theme of your story, that sliver of that person's life, is the answer to one of these questions. Sometimes they overlap a little bit, but you're going to see one constant emerge from this. So you ask the first question, what makes you unique? So maybe the person says, oh, I'm not unique, I'm just like everybody else. So go to the next one. Is there something for which you are proudest? No, not really. Now that's probably not going to happen, but I'm just going to pretend I'm being hard on you, right? Do you have an unusual job or hobby? No, I just go to school and go home, right? And then you get to number 5 and you find out that the person has a pet boa constrictor, right? Well, now you know what your story's about. His pet boa constrictor named Fluffy, right? So you've got a ton of questions already in your head. What is a boa constrictor? How big is it? What does it eat? Why is it called Fluffy? Where does it live? Does this person have a roommate? And is this roommate okay with Fluffy? You know, there's so many things you can ask here. But you're going to get to something, I promise you, in that person's life. Here's what you will not do. You will not answer every single one of these questions unless the person's unusual hobby is having a pet boa constrictor. He's proudest of that and he feels unique because no one else does. But you see what I'm talking about? There's still the theme, his unusual pet. That's the answer that we're looking for here. Now we're going to ask our closed and open-ended questions. Now, we're going to skip a huge step that you're going to do for your final feature story. We're going to jump right into this interview, and that's okay because it's good to practice this too. right? We're going to work on our feature question list for our long feature. But remember what we discussed. Take notes with a pen and a pad. Use a recording device with permission. Don't count on technology. Technology is not always your friend. You want to pretend it's not even there and take really good notes, right? So ask a question that gives you information. For example, can you explain how you started on your hobby? And that's closed-ended, like how did you start to get a boa constrictor? And the person says that, his aunt bought him one for his birthday, right? So that's kind of closed-ended. That's just an answer to a question. We're going to paraphrase that. There's nothing to really quote in that one. Then we're going to ask a question that reveals the heart and the head of person, right? How did he feel when he first got his boa constrictor? What made him so passionate about this pet? What is it about Fluffy that kind of lights up his life, So we want to ask those. So ask something that gives you info, then ask something that reveals a heart and head. And that you're going to actually be organizing yourself as you go along. It's helpful to do that. Now, remember what you're looking for. You know your destination, right? You're looking for your heart and head statements, right? You're looking for your ending quote. There's some tools and some pieces of this story that you want to have before you leave, right? What's your ending quote going to be? Because that's going to help you decide how you're going to start it, because you're going to hint at that quote and your lead. That's the key to your story because it helps you to know where you're going, right? You also want to know what your story's about, right? That's going to be your nut graph. So basically your story is about Joe Smith, who has had a pet boa constrictor, Fluffy, for the past 15 years. And he tells Fluffy all of the secrets of his life, right? Or whatever it is about Fluffy, that is the story, right? So you want to know that before you leave it. Honestly, once that person starts telling you, once you've got the answer to your question, one of those 4 questions, you're going to know where you're going, right? Now, here's where we're going to make sure that we really take care of what we've accumulated, and we're going to transcribe our notes onto a Word document or someplace on our computer that we can save. Organize your information by category. Put your direct quotes, those statements, put quotation marks around direct quotes, what you want to use word for word. And then bullet points you can put for all your other information. You can single space or double space this, whatever you want to do here. This is really for you. If you give me a half a page of notes, I'm going to know you made something up. I'm going to know you guessed. I'm going to know you did not write a story based on that interview. So when I see that, if I just see a half a page, we're going to have a talk, right? Because if you did an interview and you got good answers to your questions, you're going to have a good chunk of notes there, right? Now, if the person went on a rabbit trail and it went off topic, you don't really have to write that down or type that in your transcribed notes, but you want to be careful that you don't throw anything away until you finish your story, right? By doing this, you can contact your friend or classmate really soon afterward and get some more answers to your questions. So as soon as that interview is over, you want to budget your time so that you go directly to transcribing your notes. So the light at the end of the tunnel, right? You're going to write your story now. You really, once you get to the transcribed notes portion, you have basically done 90% of the work. You want to save some time for editing, read out loud. That's how you're going to catch any mistakes, even punctuation mistakes that you might miss with your eye. Submit your story and your transcribed notes. So what I've just told you here in this presentation is also in a Word document called Keep It G-Rated. That's got these notes in it too, so feel free to print that as a reminder of what we just talked about.